on fast cars.
Hello, ladies.
This is Women Take the Wheel.
Sit down, strap in, and turn on all you've got.
Nikki Clark is taking you behind the scenes.
You're ready to win. Let me tell you, these cars, they get up and go pretty good.
Introducing you to women drivers, crew members, and fans of the racing world. Plus, Nikki is bringing you the latest racing news in Indiana and beyond.
We're going to bring it to you from the tower as they get ready to pull into the beam.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network.
All right, strap yourselves in.
Woo! Getting off the track and in your ears. This is Women Take the Wheel.
Come on, baby.
With your host,
Here we go.
Nikki Clark.
Hi, I'm Nikki Clark, your host for Women Take the Wheel here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And on this episode, I'm chatting with two-time Motorsports Writer of the Year and a fellow podcaster, Kelly Crandall. And let me tell you, we could have talked for hours. She's been hooked on racing since she was just a little girl. She tells us when she knew she wanted to write about NASCAR, how she used social media to build up her writing resume, and then the ups and downs of social media, and why you really, really need to go to a race if you've never been to one. So stay tuned.
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecast, radar, and Indiana sports all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
Okay, and welcome to another Women Take the Wheel. I am Nikki Clark, and I am here with motorsports writer Kelly Crandall today. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. And you may know her. You may see her on social media, on all these racing websites, her name on the byline. I'm so impressed by your resume and looking at, Motorsports Writer of the Year, not once, but twice. Tell me a little bit about your career in motorsports writing.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to condense it a little bit. But yeah, two-time Writer of the Year, the NMPA, and ironically enough, now I was voted president. So I'm in the second year of my term doing that. So wow. I guess I'm doing something right. Yeah, I guess I'm doing something right. They like me over there. So yeah, that happened a couple years ago. I got into racing as a fan. I started with NASCAR back in 2001. My dad was a little bit of a race fan growing up, and by the time that he had a family and had kids, he was more of just a casual fan. And the analogy that I always use is just like casual football fans watch the Super Bowl, casual race fans will watch the Daytona 500 because that's the biggest race, right? It's the first race of the year. It's the most exciting race. Everybody knows the Daytona 500. So he was watching the 2001 Daytona 500 when Dale Earnhardt died. I wasn't watching. I wasn't paying attention. I had no idea what was going on. But I just remember him talking for months afterwards about what had happened and talking to a family friend about watching the summer race when the series was going to go back to Daytona for the first time and how special that was going to be. And I just kept hearing it over and over and over for months. So the first race I watched was the 2001 Pepsi 400 at Daytona, the summer race at Daytona. And I remember sitting down in a beanbag chair, and I didn't move the entire night. I was hooked from the first minute. It was the speed, it was the sound, it was under the lights and the colors, and just this incredible story that was unfolding on television with Dale Earnhardt Jr. winning at the track that had taken his father's life just months earlier. So that's how I got into racing, and over the years just became obsessive with it. When I say obsessive, like I would plan, I can't go out and do anything on weekends because there's practice and qualifying and there's racing, and how am I going to watch? And I want magazines, and once the internet came along, okay, I got to go, what are these websites that I can go to? What books can I read? by the time I was in middle school and high school, I always enjoyed writing. English classes, for whatever reason, were always my favorite. They were always the ones that I was best at. And by the time I was a sophomore in high school, it was one of those things where I was still really, really into racing, and I really liked writing, and it was kind of a light bulb moment of I can combine these two things. And I've been tunnel vision ever since then, which I guess has worked to my advantage. I started self-publishing on Bleacher Report when I was in college. That was in the very early stages of Bleacher Report, for anyone who remembers that back then anybody could sign up and create a profile, right? There was really no rules. It was kind of the wild, wild west, but that worked to my favor. I was in college, so I was going to college and getting a degree in corporate communications, but I started self-publishing, and a lot of it was just aggregating stuff that was already out there. So it's painful now to look back on and be like, ooh, that's not that. Yeah. Like that's not mine. It's terrible. I should have sourced that better or whatever it was. But I just wanted to get experience. Twitter came along while I was in college. Actually, I think it was a few years. Yeah, it was right around when I got in college. So I started using that, following reporters and media members, and I used it as my portfolio. And a couple years after college, it didn't happen right away, but a couple years after college, I started just finding more ways to get published, and eventually talked myself into a friend's bedroom in North Carolina so I could get down there to be closer to where the racing was. And yeah, the rest is history. It's been pretty incredible since then. I've done a stint with NBC Sports. I've been with racers now since 2017, and I get to freelance and do all these different things. So I'm sure you want to talk about all of it, but that's kind of, how it happened.
It's funny because I'm like, okay, she's just answered that question. She just answered that question. I'm like, you knew exactly what I was going to ask. And see, that's why you're good at your job. Because you're like, I give you you knew the assignment when I asked you. And so, so you are a NASCAR girl then. So you just got hooked right away. You just knew it's like, oh my God, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, English classes were always my favorite thing, and I was so obsessive with racing. I mean, really, I was just trying to learn everything, and if there were show car events in town, I wanted to go see the show car. If there was meet and greets at the local stadium because the local short track because the NASCAR guys were coming out, I wanted to go there. It was everything. It was everything. And then one of my English teachers in high school said, why don't you should really be writing for the school newspaper, because I would always show her like the extra stuff I was doing on the side, like trying to come up with stories. And that was her suggestion. She said, you should write for the school newspaper. So like I said, it was it was just a light bulb moment, really. I don't exactly remember when or how it happened, but I just remember being in high school and thinking, okay, I can combine these two things, which is probably very thankful, because one of the other things that I thought I was going to do with my life is because back then I was very much in love with the CSI show. So I was like, oh, that looks cool. I'm going to be a forensic criminalist or whatever it was, right? Like that would not have worked at all. That would have been terrible. So thankfully, racing and writing took me in another direction.
Yeah, I was married to an officer for 20 years, and watching a CSI show, it doesn't happen like that. It is so slow. It's not like that. I know,
they make it look so cool. They make it, they make the lab look so cool with the lighting and, all these machines and tools. And then you realize that it's, not like that. It's probably a windowless room, and it's very serious. So thankfully we did not go down that rabbit hole.
And it takes more than 24 hours. And your social media, that is where that is where I discovered you. I'm like, oh my God, she writes incredible stories. She writes, and getting in on the front end of that was the way to go for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I joined in 2009. So I don't remember exactly when Twitter came out, but yeah, I was on there pretty early, and I think it was because a friend or somebody had invited me to join, and I was like, okay, let me check this out. So I signed up, and as I said, I found all of these. At the time, a lot of it was just reporters. It was just NASCAR reporters. NASCAR, the teams, the drivers weren't really embracing it yet. It took a while for that to happen. So I used it more as, like I said, a networking thing, and I could follow them and see what they were doing, and they were, of course, sharing pictures and talking about their jobs, and it gave me a really good idea of, like, who these people are and what they're doing and kind of how it works. And eventually, teams started joining, and they were posting about their drivers or what was going on, and then Brad Keselowski tweeting from his car in 2012 at the Daytona 500 when the track was on fire. That basically is when the entire NASCAR garage was, as I like to say, they were drug into the social media world kicking and screaming because Keselowski went viral with that tweet. And then all of a sudden everybody was like, okay, what is this platform that we can use to directly engage with fans? So more NASCAR got on it, teams got on it, drivers got on it. Soon it was like every media member was on there. And yeah, I just continued to use it as a platform and talk to people on there. And I was self-publishing, so I'd use that to share articles. So by the time that I got my first credential, people already knew who I was. There were media members, radio people recognized my name. I walked into the Daytona Wing House in, I don't know what year it was. Might have been 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. I walked into the Wing House and I spotted Dave Moody from MRN and Sirius XM. And I spotted him, but before I could even say anything, he spotted me and recognized me and called me over and knew me by name. And I had listened to his show forever, and he was another one from social media that I had known. And for him to recognize me and introduce me to the rest of the people that he was having lunch with, that felt like one of my first big validations of, okay, people know who I am. I'm making kind of inroads here. And he has continued to be one of my biggest fans and one of my, great friends ever since then. So yeah, social media went a long way into making these connections.
See, I always tell people they underestimate social media. Even we were talking about the teams getting on it and using them. Some still need to learn how to use it. And I'm like, I've become friends with fans and the interaction, and people like you. And I think people underestimate it so much.
It's so funny because there's people on Twitter who follow me today that every so often they'll pop up and they'll comment on a story and they will say, I remember reading you when you were first starting out on Bleacher Report. And to me, that is just so cool that they remember and they've seen how far I've come and how things have changed since 2009, that they still remember my name and that they were kind of like the OGs, as I say, reading the absolute crap that I was putting out.
But you learned.
Back then. And the fact that, now they're following me on Twitter and they want to see me at the racetrack and they want to say hi and they want to talk about racing or they want to talk about wrestling or they want to talk about NHRA, whatever it may be, that to me is so cool. And again, that all comes from social media.
And that's the thing too and I want to bring it up to like people who are women who are aspiring to write and everything like that. Like you said, you weren't perfect at first. You look back and you learned. So it's a growing process. You're not going to be right off the bat perfect. So it's a learning experience.
Yeah, there was a lot of learning during Bleacher Report because, like I said, I didn't have access. I wasn't a media member. I was just a big fan who was going to school. I wanted to learn how to do this, and I was aggregating a lot of stuff. I was also coming up with stuff on my own, but it wasn't anything great, right? It wasn't these in-depth feature stories. It was just little silly stuff. But that was my practice. That was, as you say, if you have to write every day to do it. And I was just pumping out ridiculous amounts of stuff, some of it good, some of it garbage, some of it just complete rip-offs of what other people were doing. But that was how I was getting my repetition. The other thing with Bleacher Report is when you go from being just an anonymous person living your life to published on the internet, you learn a whole lot about the people who live on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
So Bleacher Report was also really, really tough for me because there were people that were just so disgusting on there of not just they didn't like you or like what you wrote or would argue with you about a driver, but they would make it personal. And I think a lot of the times they would make it personal because I'm going to say it, I'm a female. And there were people that did not like the fact that I knew what I was talking about and I was passionate about racing and that I'm a woman doing it. And there were a lot of trolls there were people who would make spoof accounts of me with like really ugly, disgusting pictures. Yes, yeah. There were people like they would take pictures and like mess them up or take really disgusting pictures from the internet or whatever it may be. There were there was just people so Bleacher Report got me experience with being published, as I said, but it also was right from the beginning a welcome to the internet and welcome to the world and the life you're going to have if you're going to be a recognizable person who is going to have a job that people are going to read your stuff. So yeah, it was rough in the beginning. Like I said, I was going through that learning curve of just learning how to write, learning how to publish, learning all of that while trying to, be better at my craft, while also right from the day one learning right away, okay, this is what the internet is going to be like.
Oh, and it's not just the internet when it comes to that. I work at a TV station full time, and you wouldn't believe the emails people send me about my anchors and just like disgusting about what they're wearing or how their hair is. They won't watch because, her hair is crazy or she wears this. I'm like, you need a life. I'm like,
I mean, I still get it today, but it started right from the beginning. And I would hope that, here I am all these years later. Some of it doesn't bother me. Some of it bounces right off. But listen, I'm human, and I tell people all the time when they get on me because they're like, why do you care? It's social media. I think that's the stupid excuse ever. Just because it's quote-unquote social media doesn't make it okay. We're all humans. We all have feelings, right? And you know what? We all have days where sometimes it bothers you just a little bit more than others. So I still have it today where people call me fat, where people are, people don't like the fact that I don't smile in pictures. People don't understand, hey, how about instead of judging me for why I'm not smiling in a picture, you ask me why I'm not smiling in a picture. Because you know what? I'll gladly tell you that sometimes I have self-confidence issues with my smile. Instead of telling me that I'm fat and that I should do cocaine to lose weight, why don't you ask me, why don't you talk to me about the fact that I've always been someone who has struggled with body images, right? Instead of going on here and calling me a Karen, which is absolutely hilarious, I don't even know what the hell that means. Is that the same thing as calling somebody woke, where we just use words that we have no idea what they actually mean anymore? So I'm woke, I'm a Karen, I'm a liberal piece of crap. I've been called all of that, which I've never once tweeted what my political leanings are, but people just assume because I do like to share about how I think everybody should be kind to one another. So how dare me do that? I still get all of it, right? I still get about how I don't know what I'm talking about and how I should get off the internet because I'm too thin-skinned, or I should go do something else. Or it's constant. It really is. And again, some of it bounces right off. And then there's days where you just want to fight everybody.
Oh, I have those days. I don't have caffeine today, so yeah, today will be a fighting day for me. Well, let's move on to something more positive, because I'm so mad that people do that to you, because that's just so not fair. It's, don't judge me by my looks or whatever. It's like, am I writing? I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So back off.
Like I said, it happens. It happens all the time. I get called a shill. I get accused of being too scared to write real stories because I'll get my credential pulled, and it's one thing after another. It just sometimes you laugh, and then sometimes they hit a little too close to home.
Yeah, but I know the feeling though, because it's and sometimes you want to voice your opinion and you don't, and you keep it down because you still have to work with these people and you don't want to get blocked or you don't want to do others. So yeah, just to me, it's you see what I do right. Oh, you should see what I don't write. You should see what I hold back.
It's so funny you say that, because I don't really worry about that. I've always felt like I've been pretty respectful of the people that I have to work with. And I've always had that conversation with NASCAR, which is, I've criticized NASCAR before, contrary to what many of the trolls will believe. If you actually do your research and go look in my portfolio, I have criticized NASCAR when I have felt it's warranted. But the difference with me is I am not on there criticizing NASCAR or criticizing drivers every single day. And it seems like that bothers people. It seems like if you're not constantly ripping somebody down, then you must be a shill. But what I was going to say is I've always felt like I've had respectful relationships with the people that I cover and with NASCAR. But when you say there about, maybe I don't say this or maybe I don't tweet this, I don't think of it in terms of like the people that I have to cover. Honestly, Nikki, I think of it more in terms of, you know what, I'm not going to tweet that, or I'm not going to share that opinion, or I'm not going to share something that a driver said just because I don't want to deal with the shit people that are going to be in my comments. Like, I think of it more in terms of that, like trying to protect myself from, you know what, I can save myself from the, loads of bullcrap that are about to be in my mentions if I don't share this quote from a driver, or if I don't share my opinion on what just happened with this. Now, granted, it's still, people still find things to rip you down about, but I try to protect myself in that way. I don't really think of it in terms of, you know what, I'm going to keep my opinion to myself when it comes to NASCAR or the drivers. I've always felt like I've been pretty fair with them about that. And I feel like I have really good relationships in the garage with people that when I have criticized someone, I've always felt fair about it. I've given people the chance to respond, or I just haven't been over the top with it. And I truly believe I can walk to the garage and people don't have a problem with me and they understand. And when there have been, Corey LaJoie took me to task a couple years ago because he disagreed with a column that I wrote, but he did it in a really fun and nice, easygoing way. And I went up to him at the racetrack the following week and we talked about it like adults.
That's very cool.
We laughed about it. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I wrote that. And maybe looking back, I probably could have done a different job about it. And we're fine. So like I said, I don't think of it in terms of like hiding and saving myself from the people I cover, because I always feel like I do a pretty good job of that. I think of it more in terms of like, you know what, I'm not going to put that on Twitter today because I know it's just going to invite all the crazy people out.
Man, I just love it. Communication, what a crazy thing. Oh my God. Communicating and having an adult conversation. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah. It's so funny. People are like, you're just a shill for NASCAR. You never criticize them. I'm like, do you want me to screenshot all of the text messages and the phone calls that I get when they want to talk about something I've written that they don't like? Because, it does happen. But again, we have normal conversations about it. Last year was a good and bad year for NASCAR when it comes to this new race car, when it comes to the next-gen car, right? There was a lot of great racing, but there were a lot of headlines about how unsafe drivers felt with this race car. And obviously Kurt Busch gets a concussion, and he still has not been back behind the wheel. Yeah. I wrote all of those stories. I wrote an in-depth feature story with multiple quotes from multiple drivers about how they're not being listened to by NASCAR. Well, again, if I was a shill, I wouldn't have written that in the first place. But I wrote it. NASCAR understood it, and I even went to NASCAR and I said, "Is there anything you want to say? Is there a statement? Is there anything you want to do?" Or I even asked for an interview with one of the NASCAR officials that works at the R&D Center. So again, if you communicate like a freaking adult and you give them a chance to respond, you don't have to be an asshole and tear someone up and down. You can get your point across without doing that.
Oh, I'm liking you more and more the more I listen to you. I'm like, this is my kind of girl. I like her. Okay. Now let's go on to a little bit more positive thing then. So you love NASCAR. Is there a favorite track that you're like, I love going to this every year? Is there a favorite track or race where you look forward to more than others?
I've had more and more over the years for different reasons, but Daytona will always be my first. I say that's my home away from home. So as I said earlier, that was the first race I heard of. That was the first race I watched. It was the first racetrack that I saw in person. We stopped by during winter testing one year while we were on a family trip to Florida going to Disney. So it was the first racetrack I had literally ever been to. It was the first race that I went to live in person. That was in 2004 with my dad, and that became a tradition. Every year, every July, my dad and I went to that race. It was the first place that I got credentials to cover a Cup Series race. So there's just many reasons why Daytona is always going to be special to me. I love that racetrack. I know that super speedway racing is not for everybody, and it scares me as much as it scares the next person with the high speeds and the dangers. But when they are 2 and 3 wide and they're putting on a masterclass lap after lap, and the speed and the sound and it's under the lights, I love Daytona. I love that place so much. But over the years, now that I've gotten to travel more, there's some really great racetracks. Martinsville is just so historic. It's so much fun. That was also one of the first races I got to cover when I came into the sport. It's where I met my future husband. So Martinsville will always be a special place. Bristol is just Oh, absolutely incredible. It's so picturesque. It's got the drag strip right next door, which is also so picturesque with the mountains. But
Yes.
the Bristol night race is a classic, and just the atmosphere and the racing and that racetrack. Oh, and it's a great facility, speaking from a media member perspective. So I could go on. Talladega's a lot of fun. So yeah, there's many over the years, but Daytona will always be at the top of the list.
See, and I'm like you with Bristol. I think Bristol is one of the first places I went when I was working for a marketing firm, and I did Super Chevy and Fun Ford. And just Bristol, it's just like it's awe-inspiring. Looking at the mountains, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'd love this. And the staff there is what makes it too. They are just so great there. And one of my other favorites is right by you. I love ZMAX down in Charlotte because for racing, they do the 4-wide there, and the staff there is just incredible. I never have to worry about anything there.
I'm still getting used to 4-wide racing, but yeah, I mean, the Speedway Motorsports staff is incredible, whether it's at Bristol or Charlotte, ZMAX. ZMAX is another one. It's a beautiful facility. Las Vegas Motor Speedway is on the NASCAR side. I haven't been to the drag strip yet. I stopped by because the gates were open when I was leaving the NASCAR race a couple weeks ago, so I just walked right in. But I haven't been there for a race, but it looks pretty awesome. But the oval track for NASCAR is a wonderful facility, and as you said, the staff is just incredible. So yeah, there's so many of them, either whether it's from a racing perspective or the people and the amenities that that you have to deal with. That's what I always think about.
And now, because I'm an NHRA girl and I am a drag strip girl, I've gotten to know you too because you've been covering more drag racing and on more and more people on that. What did you think the first time you watched drag racing? Being a NASCAR fan, what do you like about the drag racing aspect?
So my drag racing history is actually pretty funny. There's two parts of this. There's the part from when I was a kid, and I grew up in New Jersey, and I could hear Englishtown Raceway Park from my backyard.
Oh, yeah, great strip.
Yes, love Englishtown Raceway Park, and I had been there when I was a kid. Now, I don't remember any of it, so I don't know if I actually saw a race there, but I know I was there. I also worked the concession stand there. Now, I couldn't see the racetrack, so that was part of what I didn't like. And it also took me away from NASCAR racing because I had to work on the weekends. So going back to what I said earlier of trying to plan my life around racing. And I also wanted to eat the pizza instead of selling it. So I didn't last long at the concession stand. So I was familiar with drag racing. Like I said, that hearing it from my backyard, my dad would have it on the TV. So I've known who John Force is. I know who Cruz Pedregon is. I know all of these names. I know drag racing, but it was just not something that I followed because, like I said, I fell in love with NASCAR. So it's always been just kind of in the back of my mind. Hadn't been to races. I would see highlights on TV, but that was the extent of it. So the second part of how I am now where I am was 2019. Lisa Hughes Kennedy from Toyota, not only is one of the top executives for Team Toyota, but she's become a really good friend over the years. And I think it was a NASCAR off weekend that year for us, and NHRA was in Bristol. And for whatever reason, she called me up and she said, "Hey, do you want to come up to Bristol with me for NHRA? I'm going to go see my teams, yada, yada." And I was like, okay, sure. So she takes me up there. Like I said, this was June 2019, and I went everywhere she went. So I was in the pit with the team. I was hanging out with the drivers, hanging out with the PR people. I was up at the starting line. I was standing next to the Christmas tree with Connie Coletta. I was just anywhere and everywhere. I was in the staging lanes watching them buckle J.R. Todd in, which absolutely blew me away because I'm like, he's sitting on top of a bomb. Like, this is insane. And just like with NASCAR, all it took was that one time, and I was hooked. And I remember we drove home that night through, as you know, the Bristol Mountains and all, that. And I was in the back seat, and her and the other folks that we were with, our other friends that we were with that day, were talking. And I started playing on my phone. And they couldn't figure out why I had gotten so quiet. And the next thing you know, I had typed out an entire article in the Notes app on my phone.
Of course you did.
About a first-person perspective of what it was like to be at the drag strip and what it was like to stand in the starting line and just, the entire experience. And I wrote it on my phone. Racer published it, I think, the next day, and that was it. It was just, everybody was like, wow, you what an unbelievable description, so on and so forth. Of course, COVID hit the next year, so I watched a little bit, paid attention to a little bit. I did some podcasts with some of her drivers, started to learn more about it, get more into it. And then by 21, I was going to a bunch of races. I went to ZMAX. I went to Bristol. I think I was in Maple Grove. I just was like, this is so much fun. I want to do more of this. Started doing more interviews, started doing more podcasts. And, yeah, it's just exploded ever since then. So now it's a weekly thing. I can proudly say that just as much as I am into NASCAR, I am into NHRA. Even if I'm covering NASCAR on a weekly basis, I'm tuned in. I have the NHRA.TV app. I watch every weekend. I take notes. I'm trying to learn still. I've got a lot of feature stuff planned already for this year that I've been trying to put together, and I've done a bunch of podcasts. So yeah, it's right up there with NASCAR. I'm investing just as much time and energy into covering that as I am the stock cars.
And see, and I love it too, and what you mentioned too, and something NHRA has been trying to push, and Tony Stewart in particular too, is it's one thing to watch it on TV, but for you to go to a race and be there, that's where you get hooked. When you're sitting in that seat, and like you said, and they turn up and turn on, and you're like, that's when you get hooked.
It is. I still post that story every once in a while, the story that I wrote in the back of Lisa's car, because that's what it was. It was a first-person perspective. And I think I started the story by saying something to the effect of the human body does two things when it's hit with 22,000 horsepower, because I, lined up behind two top fuel dragsters. And yeah, I just tried to go into explaining what it is like to be there and to hear it and to feel it and to smell it, and compared it a little bit to NASCAR. And I was honest. I said, listen, I love NASCAR. I love stock cars. I love the power of stock cars, but that's a different power than when the ground is moving under your feet at an NHRA race. So yeah, that's exactly what that story was all about. Of you have to experience it. And I see people on my Twitter sometimes who will talk to me about NHRA, and I tell them the same thing, because they'll say, well, I used to be a fan, but I haven't been out to the races in a long time, and I've just maybe see some stuff on TV. And I tell them, I'm like, you need to go back out to the racetrack and remind yourself of what makes this so special and so different.
Being on the starting line, there's nothing like that. I try to tell people, I'm like, because and I don't know how to watch anywhere else, because that's what I've been doing for years, is standing next to the top fuel dragster and, trying to explain it to my friends, and they just don't get it. And then the same thing with getting hooked, as we talked briefly, is IndyCar. I think I was kind of like you, where it's like, well, I knew about IndyCar. I knew the names, Andretti, Foyt, all that, and then I went to my first Indy 500. And I was hooked. I'm like, this is what people talk about when they talk about the great spectacle in racing. There is nothing like it until you get there and you experience it and you're on pit row. You're like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It sounds so cliche when we tell race fans, you have to go to the racetrack because it's a different kind of experience. But it really is. Whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, NHRA, you have to go out there. You have to feel it. You have to smell it. It really, truly is about all of those things. And yeah, it's now to the point where I go to an NHRA race and I can't keep myself from the starting line.
Okay,
so if Allie Bland, if Allie Bland or anybody from NHRA is watching, I don't know if I'm not supposed to be out there or not, but I just walk out there like I'm supposed to be there, and I go to the starting line for some runs, because it's like I have to be out there. I have to feel it. I start jonesing, and I'm like, I gotta go out there. So
you are allowed, yes, and you need that nitro smell. You got to have the burn. You got to have the nose burn, the eye cry. Once you got to experience that.
Yeah, I love it. It's truly like an addiction.
It is, and it's sad. I'm like, oh, I've missed this so much. I think this is the longest I've gone without going to a race. I went to Indy, and I haven't been to a race. I'm going to hit Chicago here in May, but I'm like, I am jonesing right now. But luckily, I have a group of friends here and some wives and girlfriends, the crew guys, and that we all get together every Sunday at somebody's house, and we watch the races, and we cheer for each other's teams. And there's a couple I don't cheer for, but They understand.
That was me last year. Yeah, that was me last year. I've been doing my NASCAR schedule, my travel schedule has picked up so much in the last 2 years, and I did 20-something races last year. I'm going to do 20-something races this year. So last year, I think I only got to go to 1, maybe 2 NHRA races, and I was like, it hit me during the off season. I'm like, this is not cool. Like,
yeah.
I need to find a way to go to more. So even though I'm going to be doing 20-something NASCAR races and basically covering every race, whether I'm at the track or not this year, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, how can I get to, maybe Bristol or go to someplace other than just Charlotte this year?
You're always welcome at Indy. You can always come here. We got you. You've come for the U.S. Nationals. We got you hooked up. And here's a question that I ask writers too. Did you ever have the ambition to drive a race car?
No, not seriously. I think if I was ever daydreaming about, just because I was so obsessive about race cars and race car drivers of like what it would be like to be a race car driver and be famous. But now that I'm in the sport, I'm like, you know what? I don't need all of that.
I just know I'm not a good driver. So.
Yeah, nothing serious. It was more of like when I was just really, really young when I first got into the sport. Again, I was just so obsessed and like so curious about it that I was like, okay, that's cool. But no, I don't think I ever seriously thought about it. I just knew I wanted to be involved somehow, some way. And then thankfully, as we talked about, when I got to high school, the light bulb went off. So once racing entered the picture, it was like I knew I was going to be in this world somehow. It was just figuring out what way it was going to be. But no, driving was never something that I ever thought was realistic.
I did the petty. I got to tell you what, too. I did the petty experience because same thing with NASCAR, being a drag girl. I'm like, well, I just kind of go in circles, whatever. Well, then I did the petty experience and I got to ride with them. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. The whole slopes and all that. And I'm like, okay, it's not just going in a circle. There's a lot more to it.
My favorite thing, I've done so many pace car rides over the years, and even with the pace car ride at some of these racetracks, you can really feel, the bumps. You can feel the load. You can feel the G-forces and how it's pushing you down in the seat. I love when people come over and do pace car rides for that very reason, because it's, as you said, you think it's one thing and you get out there and you're like, okay, this is not driving down the highway. The driving experiences are funny too. My fiance, actually, he drove the car. I got one for him for his birthday last year. So he drove the car around Charlotte Motor Speedway. I, however, have not driven the car, but I will say this. I don't need to drive the car because I feel like I have one-upped everyone because I got driven around in the car, not a pace car, but in the race car by Joey Logano at Daytona. And I don't
win.
know. I feel like that's pretty legit to have a two-time champion driving you around Daytona.
Yep, you win. You're like, no mas, you win. Yeah, I can't drive either. My big thing too is like when I had to, just driving my guys up in the golf cart. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna drive, Nikki. Just move over. I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't really have any desire to drive. I'm perfectly happy letting other people drive me around.
I love it. And you have a podcast too. I just want to point out too. So you have the Racing Writers podcast. And how did you get inspired to do that?
Well, I'm a big podcast fan myself. When I was working for NBC Sports in 2016, I had a lot of time I was at my desk just covering the website and working, and I was like, I need something to do while I'm sitting here working all day. And I got into podcasts, and I fell in love with wrestling podcasts, with racing podcasts, and now it's just a little bit of everything. It's embarrassing the number of podcasts I'm subscribed to. So I just became a big podcast fan, and I realized that it's such an easy way to deliver content to fans. And as someone who enjoyed podcasts, because you can listen and hear it straight from the subject. You can hear their emotion. You can hear their tone. Nothing's taken out of context. No quotes have to be shortened up for a story. You can go more in depth with podcasts. So I was thinking about all this and like I said, listening to podcasts, and I was like, it's a great way to get more content out there. So I started mine about a year later. I think it was late 2017. And it's not an opinion podcast. It's not me sitting on there ranting about things. It's an interview-based podcast every week where I have a guest, and I try to get as much time as possible with that guest. You know, sometimes it might be 30 minutes, sometimes it might be an hour or 2 hours. And I just want to go in depth of who they are, how they got here, because as we're doing right now, everybody has a story. Everybody in racing has a story. And I just, whether it's and I'll do drivers, crew members. I've done a chef. I've done the chef from Stuart Haas. His name's Andrew. He's awesome. And now I get to go eat and not have to eat media center food. So that's another perk.
Yeah, different tracks, different food. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, Chef Andrew takes care of me over there. So, I just try to find people, not always drivers. Obviously, it's a lot of drivers, but, not always drivers, crew members, PR people. The list, radio people. I've had Dave Moody on. And now the great thing about the podcast is it's another way for me to incorporate more NHRA coverage, because I love writing stories and I will do that for Racer, but it's much easier for me to do a lot more NHRA stuff with the podcast, because the podcast is mine. It's not through Racer. I can do whatever I want with the podcast. So now it's NASCAR. Now it's NHRA. Now it's I've had IMSA drivers on there. So I can use this podcast, as I said, to have these guests come on and tell their stories, and we can talk about how they got here. We can talk about the defining moments of their career and just go more in depth and let race fans hear it directly from those people. You know, I've had Dale Earnhardt Jr. on. I've had Jimmy Johnson on. I've had Brad Keselowski on. But then I've also had people all the way down to younger drivers and younger crew chiefs or people in the garage that you may have never heard of. And again, it's just really fun to get their stories. It's really fun to get their emotion. I've had quite a bit of stuff happen on this podcast that people have never heard before. I've had people get emotional on the podcast talking about stuff, and that's really rewarding. So it's just, again, it's another way to deliver content right to people. And the great part is you're hearing that person's voice, and you're hearing it directly from them.
I love it. And like I said, because, I feel the same way too. We talked about this before we started. I'm like, I do this because I want people to hear their stories, and I want to inspire. And people do so much work behind the scenes. Like you said, down to the chef that you don't know about. Like, did you know there's a person who does this? Did you know there's a person who does this?
It was fun. After I did that interview with Andrew, he takes care of Stuart Haas and might be one other team, but I did that podcast with Andrew. And the comments after that, when it came out, I had some fans who were like, you know what, that was so interesting. I legitimately thought they just went to the concession stand. And I was like, no, like there's people who take care of these teams.
That's what I do. I actually had, and one of the crew guys too came up to me at one of the local bars here in town. They're like, hey, I listened to your podcast. It was really good. I'm like, you listen to my podcast? He's like, yeah. And he's like, I like that you do the behind the scenes stuff and you feature it. I'm like, really? I'm like, wow, okay. I didn't think you guys listened to it, but that's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I get those too. And especially from drivers or people in the industry who say that to me. They're like, I listen to your podcast. And I'm like, really? You do? Or are you just saying that? But no, they'll tell me about episodes that they've listened to. Jamie McMurray was one. He texted me one day about he was out running. He says he listens to the podcast when he goes on his runs, and he was telling me one of the episodes he'd listened to. And I'm like, this is just crazy. So, yeah, I get that every so often. Like, listen, I'm sure you're the same way. I love when fans comment on the podcast because, again, I want them to listen. I want them to learn things. But it's a little bit different when it's people in your industry, when it's your peers, when it's, media people or drivers or whoever it may be that tell you that they listen. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, I didn't think you listened. I'm like, okay, that's very cool. Okay. So I was just like blushing. I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this? I've been in media, so, forever. So I'm like, okay.
Now, are you also, I don't mean to hijack the conversation, but are you also like me, talking about the podcast where I will do interviews and I will get something that I know is really good. And I'm like, okay, I know no one's ever heard that before, but then you have to wait until you drop the podcast episode to share it with people?
Yes, because I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to love this. But then I use it to kind of tease people along. I'm like, hey, wait till you hear this, like, what they're talking about. Oh, no.
One of the most recent ones that I did that with was Angel Sampé, and it was a crossover where I knew if I teased it right that it was going to get the NHRA fans and it was going to get the NASCAR fans because I had done my research, and I had also reached out and gotten a little help from someone who helped me with my questions of just kind of giving me some ideas. So I had found out that Angel, back in the early 2000s, had tested a NASCAR Cup Series car.
I didn't know that.
Exactly. And the whole backstory of why people didn't know that is because it was a secret. And she was not allowed to talk about it. Winston, her sponsor at the time, who was also sponsoring the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, they didn't want anybody to know. They didn't want anybody to talk about it. So I found this out, and now the statute of limitations has run out. So I asked her about it on the podcast. And first off, she was blown away that I knew that. But then I got the story, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to share this with people. I can't wait to share how, multi-time NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle Champion Angel Sampey tested a NASCAR Cup Series car because Winston thought maybe she could be a female NASCAR driver. Like, it was unbelievable,
Wow.
the story. And, hearing her talk about, Kevin Harvick and Richard Childress were there helping her. She was testing one of the Chevrolets, and how she crashed. And so the funniest part of the story is she crashed because she didn't understand what loose meant. And so when they were telling her, the car's getting loose, you should probably come in, you should probably pit, she had no idea what that meant. So she crashed, and she hit her face on the steering wheel, and she had 2 black eyes. She must have busted her nose. Well, again, this was all a secret. They didn't want anybody to know that she had tested a NASCAR stock car. So the public story became that she had been in a car accident in her rental car.
Oh, my God.
So, again, when you get a story like this on the podcast, I'm like, holy crap, I can't wait to share this.
Oh, my God. I never knew that, too, and I've followed Angel forever, and I've known she is forever. I had no idea. That is great. Oh, my God. Okay, so I do have to start wrapping up. Apparently, I'm out of podcast time. But what is your best advice for somebody who, a girl out there who wants to write, and what advice would you give to her to get into the business?
Just write every day. Find a way to write. Find an outlet. Find some place to get published. Use social media to your advantage to start networking. Use LinkedIn. That's another one that I wasn't on it for years, and I'm back on it. But yeah, build a portfolio, build a resume. Whether go to local racetracks if you want it to be racing, or even if you want to eventually get into racing, but do other sports. Don't I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I was tunnel visioned on racing, and I never did anything else. I never covered anything else. I never wanted to do anything else. I've been racing since day one, but you can also make your way into racing if you go out and get experience covering and doing something else. So nothing beats experience. Nothing beats writing. Build relationships. You got to start somewhere. And yeah, use social media to your advantage. And don't let people tell you can't do it just because you're a woman. As we talked about, you're going to hear that. But if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're talking about, if you ask good questions, which I cannot stress enough, we could have a whole podcast just on that.
Maybe we'll have a part 2.
Yeah, we can have a whole podcast just on media etiquette. But if you carry yourself well, if you know what you're talking about, if you cover whatever you're covering with respect and with facts, and again, ask good questions, then there's no reason that you can't make it. So sometimes you're just going to have to beat down a door. But again, if you can find ways to do it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming on today, Kelly. I've learned so much, and I've learned so much about you. I've learned so much about the sport. I'm like, and this is the purpose of the podcast, to learn stuff. Thank you so much for coming on. And I think we might have to have a part 2 here sometime later in the season.
I think so. We honestly have only scratched the surface. I've got some good stories, but I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you again for listening. I'm Nikki Clark, and this is Women Take the Wheel. Be sure to connect and follow on Facebook when you search for Women Take the Wheel podcast. And be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast right now on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is Women Take the Wheel with Nikki Clark. Follow and subscribe to this podcast now and discover even more great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Online at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. allindianapodcastnetwork.com.